trouble. Wicked, why you gotta be so wicked? And the moment that you caught my eyes, I'm in trouble. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Why you gotta be so cruel? No, you made my knees weak, my heart stopped a beat. I still want you. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Trouble. I don't wanna get in trouble. Trouble. I don't wanna get in trouble. 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 I don't wanna get in trouble. But every time I hear you laugh, I get into trouble. Wicked, why you gotta be so wicked? And the moment that you caught my eyes, I'm in trouble. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted. time I hear you laugh, I get into trouble. Wicked, why you gotta be so wicked? And the moment that you caught my eyes, I'm in trouble. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Why you gotta be so cruel? No, you made my knees weak, my heart stopped beating. I still want you. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Trouble. I don't wanna get in trouble. Trouble. I don't wanna get in trouble. 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 I don't wanna get in trouble. But every time I hear you laugh, I get into trouble. Wicked, why you gotta be so wicked? And the moment that you caught my eyes, I'm in trouble. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Why you gotta be so cruel? No, you made my knees weak, my heart stopped beating. I still want you. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Trouble.
I really don't feel good like this. We're getting a lot.
Is anyone here? What did you find?
You are listening to Supernatural Confessions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to On the Fringe. It's another week, another episode where we talk about something you guys wanted to talk about. So, here today we actually have Mermaids and Sirens. But before we go there, hey, Bill, how's your week been?
It has been pretty good, pretty good. But before that, we need to do the customary on the fringe mic check to see if everyone can hear us fine and there's no weird static or ghost sounds in my background.
Yeah,
So,
especially the ghost
if
sounds.
everyone in the chat could give a yes or no to can you hear both me and Matt? Uh, please say yes. Please say here, here.
I think we're good.
Looks like we're good. All right,
Yeah.
and my week has been pretty dang good. Pretty uneventful. Nothing up with my ghost wife, so I'm pretty happy. I might go to Hopper Villa next month to burn one of the Jashu sticks just in case. And yeah, so far
Yo,
work's
I
been
mean-
okay. I finally got budget to freaking get beer, and Anchor still no sponsorship, even though you are
No.
my favorite.
No Anchor sponsorship. I thought people say I'm a bit soft. Let's see if I can yeet. I think I should be much
Keep
better now.
yourself.
But yeah, I mean, the ghost wife thing, man. I told you, people need to hook you up somehow, one way or another. We gotta get you, finding a ghost wife and everything.
I mean,
Yeah, I think Sonia's. Wait, where's Sonia's in this chat somewhere? Where?
yeah, she was on Facebook. Hey, Sonia. Hello, hello.
Sonia, we're supposed to get Bill as what's the word called? A guinea pig to do stuff. You guys have each other's number. You guys can please bring him on a tour or something.
Yes,
That'd be
bring me
great.
on a tour. Bring me on a tour. Like preferably to the sites of Singapore, because we still haven't gone on our little expedition to find the BTM, the Bukutima Monkey Man.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot. We supposed to do that.
Yeah, you almost forgot about that.
Yeah, I did. That was so many episodes ago, man. But yeah, anyway, my week's been pretty okay. My body's kind of tired and sore. That's because I played rugby yesterday, and I'm
Oh yeah, I
aching
saw
all
that.
over the place. Yeah, I'm aching all over the place, man. I think the other guys might kill me for saying this, but I think age is catching up, man. I'm actually tired.
Your age.
Yeah, age and rugby don't go together pretty well, It's like you just gotta either you stick it in or bro, you can't do anything else.
Okay,
But yeah,
people are saying that
what?
people are saying that you're kind of echoey, dude. Like you're in like an
It's
echo room.
kind of weird because I haven't changed anything in my setup. It's pretty much the same. But well, it is what it is. We have a show to go and do. So today's episode, Mermaids and
And Sirens.
Also we were asked to talk about Sirens as well because, I mean, if you didn't know there was a difference before between the two, well, at least I didn't know, or I kind of knew, but I didn't know what exactly the difference was. You'll find out about that tonight. But before we move on, something I came across. I don't know if many people actually have seen this before. Oh wait, sorry, Frankie. You guys in the late 30s? No, not even close.
Yeah, I'm not even close.
You gotta. We haven't even hit 30 between the two of us.
Yeah. We're not even pioneer, but like if we combine both our ages, we're not even pioneer generation, man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think we're both the same age. We're 27 this year.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
let's get to it. I mean, okay, there's one like.
Yeah. So you see, I came across this picture. This picture is apparently going viral on TikTok. It's of this mermaid that was apparently found on the shores of Kenya. Now, a lot of people were saying, this is a mermaid and proof of a mermaid. What do you guys think? Let us know in your comments. But Bill, what do you think of this photo?
It's very interesting because I've seen snippets of the video that this picture accompanies, and it is very. It's really odd. It's really odd. I don't know what to make heads or tails of it. I personally, my gut feeling says this can't be real.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's a young, let's say it's a young child mermaid or whatever the case. Okay, my take on this is a bit dark, right? Now, when you look at it,
Hey, no, no,
these
no. What do you mean
okay,
by
well,
dark?
okay. I
Explain
mean,
yourself.
I'm gonna explain. Like, if this is real, because if you watch the video, I can't show the video up here, but if you watch the video, the child or the human half looks like it's breathing, right?
Yep.
Um, like the abdomen is moving where it's breathing, the diaphragm is moving. You can actually see it taking in air, right?
Yes, correct.
So the my stand on it is I don't think it's a mermaid or a siren. It may be a bit darker. I actually think that it could be possible that that fish at the end of the human might have just went for lunch or gone for dinner, and this kid was just, kind of sucked in, and there you go. So it's not a mermaid or anything, but it could just be a fish that grabbed onto a kid and kind of dragged it down. That's why I said
Yeah.
it's dark.
So, but the kid is still breathing. It's still taking air, right? Or is it just the fish doing it?
No, I think both of them do, because if you look at it from a zoological standpoint, right? If you look at the anatomy of the fish half,
Yeah.
it has everything you need for a fish. It
Yeah.
has. It looks like it has gills. It has your pectoral and ventral fins
Yeah.
that most fish have. So it doesn't have any, unique points that you can see from a mermaid's perspective. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's why I think this video is more. It kind of just looked on my half more like it could be this kid who was in the wrong place, wrong time, kind of got munched on by a fish, and
Also, this is not a mermaid, but this is a river monsters episode. All right, I
yes,
see.
that it's more of a River Monsters episode. That's exactly where I was going. But yeah, that's my stance on it. And I think in this episode we'll refer to a couple pictures, but let me show you this one more. This is apparently another photo of a supposed mermaid, right? What do you think?
Oh, this looks like a skate, like a dried skate.
hmm hmm
Like, I've seen these like dried like that.
Yeah, but
They're like
apparently
raised. They're just
people actually thought that this was a mermaid in like I don't
no,
know when, but they thought this was a
no,
mermaid. Yeah,
no.
this is for me.
This is
This
a
is a
delicious treat.
yeah. This is for me. This is a definite. This is an animal that just shriveled up and dried out, and that's what it is. I don't think it's
Yeah,
anything
this is the
crazy.
delicious treat.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything
Definitely
mermaid
not a
like.
mermaid.
Definitely not a mermaid. But yeah, that's a couple of things that people have
This
been
is the
saying that
thing
they've
that
seen.
would go amazing with my Anchor beer. Anchor, sponsor us.
We can get them to if we can get them to sponsor, that'd be pretty insane.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it's actually a legal thing that they can't sponsor people. Well, actually, no, they can, because was it Heineken or Carlsberg that sponsors a few Singaporean people?
Yes, they do.
Tiger as well, Tiger Crystal. Yeah, that one I remember.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I think they do DJs, but we could
Well,
diversify.
we're kind of DJs. I mean, we don't play music. If anything, we just show pictures. You know what I mean? And
I mean,
videos.
yeah, we could always diversify at some point later on. All right, on to the next picture. On to the
All
next
right.
picture.
No, I think now we're kind of going into the actual lore of a mermaid, right? So,
All right, cool.
yeah, the thing is, when you look at the research on, or the documented cases on mermaids and sirens, right?
Mm.
It all kind of really stems or starts from actually like really early mythological or well, not mythological, medieval periods. That's when it
Eh?
started becoming a really
I
big
had
thing.
Greek mythology.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Greek mythology, the sirens.
Okay, so that's the difference, right? Because with sirens and mermaids, they have sort of different timings. They have different timelines, and if I'm not wrong, sirens actually came before mermaids. So you're right by saying sirens actually came. they were from basically the early Greek periods. And a lot of people have seen pictures of them. If you ever go to Greece, there are paintings of them. There's stuff you can see. There's a lot of photos of them. And what's interesting about Sirens and Mermaids, I mean, I did mention previously like what the difference between the two were, or I said there were differences. The difference is, I think Ivan said it good on Facebook as well. Mermaids are kind of the, let's say, the good mermaid, right? They're your typical beautiful looking. That's I want to say, okay, organism. They're like your typical beautiful organism, and they don't have much special abilities. They just are pretty much fish. They're peaceful for the most part. And then you have sirens. Sirens are a bit more, how do you say, uh, not as
Malevolent.
nice. Yeah, malevolent. They're a bit more out to get people. So that's why they're referred to as the evil mermaids. So
I don't know.
yeah,
I when I was researching this, right,
mhm,
the only so one of the key differences that I was able to put together in my mind of a mermaid and a siren is that a siren sings to entrance people to go in the water,
okay.
and a mermaid is like an eagle, sits there, looks ooh cute, and the sailors jump overboard to try and get at her, to get at her bathwater. That's
You're
what,
like
and they drag them under.
an e-girl. Is that what you're really going to?
I mean, it's a very apt description of what a mermaid is.
Yeah,
In
but yeah,
almost every account of a mermaid luring sailors, or even just sailors spotting them, they're always nonchalantly sunbathing on a rock, or in plain view in shallow waters.
yeah. And the interesting, I mean, like I said, sirens came a lot earlier before than mermaids, like the typical ones that you see, like the Little Mermaid and stuff like that. Sirens were seen all the way from the time of Homer, but increasingly more popular during the Middle Ages, where people started to go into sea more and to
Yes.
travel. And a lot of the stories were told that as they were moving throughout the oceans and seas, they could always hear this beautiful songs, and as the sailors are in sea and they hear this, they tend to slowly move towards them sounds and like all those songs. And when they reach those locations, they see these creatures who are kind of fish like, not exactly human, but they're more fish like, and they're not very beautiful to look at. I mean, there's some even stories of sirens having the abilities of changing to become humans, but this
Hmm.
is through some like really weird metamorphosis, where it's apparently painful for them. I don't know, but it's what I read, that it's painful for them. They can do it, but it hurts. And apparently, in some myths, they can actually become birds, like half human, half birds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but that's apparently what I saw.
Ah, so my research took me to took me to old maritime stories more so
Hmm.
than anything else, where the maritime stories are very descriptive on sirens. They are not half fish.
Hmm.
They're very clear on that. They are not half fish. Um, in fact, some of them can turn into half birds, as you said,
Yeah.
very close to harpies, which is strange. All right,
Yeah.
since they live in the ocean, but it makes sense because there are lots of seagoing birds and all sorts of the like. And but mermaids are very clearly depicted as half fish or part fish.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any accounts of mermen except for more modern stories of mermen.
Yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
would assume that the entire reason why mermaids take sailors and take them under is to propagate the species and have the stork deliver a baby, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Jill said something on YouTube that I thought about it. She said, so humans basically romanticized it. They were just probably ugly monsters, but somehow were put in a trance or gave them like, beer goggles essentially. Which, it could be a thing because, sailors back then, they obviously if there's nothing to do at sea, if there's nothing to do, when you put a bunch of guys together, they're going to start drinking. So
Yep.
yeah, all these things where you hear about people hearing these stories and stuff. Yeah, it could be a case of beer goggles, but as we go like more into this episode, there's some other stories where apparently it's way different. But another thing that I found out, and I kind of want to refer back to this photo. Now, an interesting thing is that how the anatomy of a mermaid slash siren is
Hmm.
is apparently there is a difference, or well, there's not a difference. You can tell is that when they see a mermaid, the part that becomes the fish is anywhere below the navel or at the navel. So they don't have belly buttons or anything. And
Yep.
from there, it kind of just spreads downwards. Get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that means even with this photo, you don't really see it. Well, yeah, you don't really see it. So
Yeah, you don't
there's
see a
another thing for
navel.
that. Yeah. So I think that's probably why a lot of people thought that was a mermaid. I guess they just need to cut open the fish to have a look. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yep. Well, I mean, we'll probably revisit this picture in a River Monsters episode at some point. But yes.
Oh yeah, for sure. But as you go forward in time in history, actually, you see there's a lot more stories where this is actually one that I'm a bit more. I know a bit more about it because this stories of mermaids and sirens. This is actually specifically referring to mermaids that in the River Rhine, which is a river that cuts through Germany. Apparently, mermaids were found even there, and
Yep.
all mermaids have been seen in almost every body of water you can think of. If it's rivers, tributaries, the oceans and seas, they've been found in all of them. And this story is actually it's different because you look at when the translations are, but some refer to them as mermaids, some refer to them as sirens. But in this case, this was a story of, if I believe this was the person who wrote it was this guy named Pfizer, and
He
this
literally
guy.
looks like he's like just taking a shield and just gonna throw it in the water to smash up some mermaids.
Right. So you see, the interesting thing is apparently, like back in the day, the Middle Ages or the medieval times, how they would appease the spirits of the sea. And, mermaids and sirens kind of seem to be the guardians of bodies of water to some areas, especially the rivers. What they would do is they would collect jewelry and treasures and they would toss them in the river. And now there's a second reason why they would do this, and that
Oh.
is to keep the treasure away from, if let's say you have a force like another country's forces coming in, you throw them in there first, and then you're like, okay, I'll get them later on. So this is what they would do because they would believe that if they threw this stuff in there, the incoming army or whatever, they can't pillage for resources and treasures.
Yeah.
So they could always just go in later to get it. And if they knew where they throw this treasure, then the sirens and the mermaids would basically kill them.
Oh.
That was the idea, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. That's almost like having like your own pet guard dog.
Yeah, so that's why I said in this case, in this story, I wouldn't say there's so much sirens because I mean they were depicted as being very beautiful, beautiful beings and organisms, and it's just really interesting that depending on where you go, again with a lot of the stories we have or a lot of the things that we've discussed, they could be benevolent or they could be out to get you, and I think it really depends on where you're going.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's interesting. So in mermaids hmm tend to be depicted more as water guardian spirits, especially in
Hmm.
rivers and in shallower regions. But as you
Yeah.
go further out to sea and into the new world, they start taking on a more sinister role as, you know, takers of men, essentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Ivan mentioned on Facebook, I feel mermaids are evolved humans to fit to the underwater world of the lost continent. Something, a link to the Atlantis episode we did earlier. But here's the thing, um, in the this, I believe it was the Discovery Channel did like a special episode of what if mermaids were real,
Mhm.
and yes, it was fake. Yes, it was pretty fake science. But one thing did stand out when I was watching that episode to research for this episode was that they correctly inferred that, hey, if a human being is going to spend most of its life to 100% of its life in water, in cold water, it's going to need a pretty thick layer of fat.
Mhm. Yeah.
And with the whole inference of scientists, the creature that they came up with that would be a more likely candidate for a mermaid looked a lot like a dugong.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to that like towards the end. I think we'll move towards what we think mermaids could and could not be. But yeah, I mean, KK Hing said on YouTube about how about the story about mistaking manatees for mermaid. We'll get to that because I mean, that's actually a really strong case of what this could actually be. You know, so as we move on, in history, you see like they move
I mean,
all over the
so
place.
here's the thing, right? I think that mermaids should not be discredited and just
Hmm.
be seen as dugongs.
Hmm.
I I get the feeling that there was a sea mammal species that did kinda look like a person, at least facially, a lot more than a dugong or a manatee. And we as humans just hunted it down to extinction.
Mm, okay, if we're considering sirens as a possibility, then
So
we could
sirens are
be.
something strange because
Yeah,
they are not described as fish-like at all.
yeah,
They are rarely even described as being in the water. They're usually near the water in island alcoves,
yeah.
not swimming in it.
And it's very similar with mermaids as well, because mermaids are like they're not in the sea all the time. They're usually in places where they can come out on land and like dry themselves off and sunbathe and stuff. And like I said, we'll get into a lot of those later on because there are a lot of mammals that you can find today that do that, right? So, I mean, Jujubee Jumi on YouTube says, I can't understand how anyone could look at a dugong and think it's humanoid.
Excuse
Well,
me,
you
Juby,
know,
if you've ever been offshore, right, for 3 months with no internet, and the only people you have been able to see are the 100 or so other people that you've seen for the past like 90 days, you see some shit in the ocean that may or
yeah,
may not be there.
yeah, I completely agree. But before we go on to that, I mean, the
And
thing is
sailors
where
would
I've,
be on the ocean for almost like a year.
especially
So,
back then.
yeah, especially back then.
So yeah, like I mean, even if you think about like especially where mermaids are from or even sirens, the thing is that the hardest thing that I don't understand or the one thing that I can't grasp is they're always kind of different in terms of their sizes. Like, you'd assume that they look humanoid or at least like human shaped, right? But if you go into the British folklore of mermaids, mermaids were found to be seen as unlucky omens, first of all,
Yep.
foretelling disaster and stuff like that.
Yep.
But also, there are mermaids who apparently you can tell a mermaid's coming by the signs of approaching rough weather, and some of them have even been described to be up to 110 meters in length.
Mermaids? Really?
Yeah,
Giant
yeah,
mermaids?
yeah. Apparently, in some of the stories that I've been looking back, like those stories were telling of like 610-meter long mermaids.
What the?
Yeah,
Okay, that's very odd.
and that's
Oh,
why it's in British folklore as well. There are such a thing as mermen, and mermen have unfortunately been described as wider, fatter, and uglier than mermaids. Which, well,
well,
that's a shame.
that's actually pretty accurate to what we are today. But
I mean, it's mermen are probably they got dad bods going on. That's fine. The rest of the
that
mermaids still
just
look good.
means that even in nature, in our idealized state of mermen, the dad bod is the best bod.
It's not the best bod. It's the most realistic bod. That's what we're saying.
What?
It's the most realistic body. A dad bod is the most realistic body you can have, especially after you get married. I mean,
You're
people
the
in the
married one. You're
comments,
the married one here, man.
people in the comments, let me know is that accurate or not. I feel like men after we get hooked up. I mean, we get married. It's just a natural transition. And we put on some pounds and we just start looking even better and prepared for having kids. I think. Oh man, but yeah, there are a lot of stories, and I'm gonna skip some of European ones because I think the interesting stories that come about mermaids and sirens actually come from both more of the Asian and the Eastern context of stuff. Like
Hmm.
even Chinese people. I mean, the Chinese folklores actually have stories of let's just I guess they're called merfolk or mer people, mermen, mermaids, right? So I can't say this right, but there's a merfolk race called the D people. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I've never taken
What?
Chinese in my life. The D I'm not sure. Someone correct me, right? But they were described as populating their own nation of basically merfolk, and they have their own area, and it was dating all the way back to the fourth century BC. So you can see actually a lot of ancient work. Like for example, the Chiru. If you we'll go into that. Let me see if I have a photo I can bring up. The
Hmm.
Chiru. I believe I do.
What is
Yes.
that?
So it's
Right.
basically a race of these kind of people, and they just kind of have a human head, and then they have a fish
Oh,
body.
yep.
Yeah. So they don't have really specific genders, so you can't really consider them like mermaids or mermen, but they're just this fish people essentially. But when I see this photo, I actually can think of one fish, and I feel like if some people know what I'm talking about, and especially back in the day, right? Let's think about it.
Hmm.
I actually think that what people are seeing are koi fish.
All right. All right.
Like
Go on.
koi fish with like the patterns on their head, and if you're looking from above, it kind of looks like they have a face, and they kind of look human. I don't really have photos, but I need to find that.
I believe there was a pretty famous koi fish that did have a pattern on its head that looked very eerily like a human face.
Right? Let me see if I can Google it.
I
But you
think you
can
are correct. But again, that goes back to my theory that that mer these like mer people, these mermaids was a
huh.
species of marine mammal that maybe had patterns, maybe even had a similar facial structure to humans. And we as humans just went, "Hey, don't like that. Don't like
Kill it.
any of that near me. Those ain't good sea creatures. But you gotta murk them."
I
And
thought.
what's sad
Well,
about it is that more than likely those marine mammals are probably like herbivores, kelp eaters.
okay. So I mean, that's really interesting. Yet the interesting thing is, right? Like you would assume that. Like I was trying to find out for the hardest, like for the most part, what the hell a mermaid and a siren eat. So a lot of people would say that yes, they do eat fish because obviously that would be their main diet. And but apparently there have been stories of um, let's say sirens and mermen or mermaid or whatever they actually do feed on things that fall into the water as well. So birds, humans, and that sort.
Yep.
So I guess if you see them as a threat, especially since they're like crashing on your boats and bringing your boats into rocks, you might want to kill them. But you could just have like a vegan mermaid, and then it's kind of sad, you know?
I mean, it's not unheard of that the sailors might have just gotten hungry and just wanted to eat them.
Yeah.
That's
But
the sad
so
thing about it.
that is true. So I actually managed to find the photo that I was referring to in the short time I had. Like you can see this photo, you can kind of see how, like especially with the photo that we saw before, you can see how it's kind of similar to like the description of the Chiru. Now, so just so you know, the Chiru is also
Yep.
found in Japan.
Yep, yep,
And
yep, yep. There you go.
if I saw this and if this was way back when, you would see, it kind of looks like a human face looking at you. And especially with the photo that you see of the Chiru before, so we can get that out.
Wow.
It's kind of the same, no? Looks almost pretty similar to what you'd expect.
Damn,
what do
yeah,
you
that
think?
is super close.
So that's why when I saw this, I was like, kind of maybe what they're referring to is a koi fish. And if you tie the two back together, pretty similar.
Again, most of these accounts, except for Sirens.
Mm-hmm.
Sirens, we still have gotten to the bottom of because we've been fixated on the mermaids. You know what I think of mermaids? Let's move on to Sirens then. We're gonna follow this pattern of faces, and there is one extinct migratory bird. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was the oh, it was a kind of albatross or something. It was meant to be really really big, and it went extinct not too long ago, around the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And I could definitely see that if a sailor saw a bird the size of what was described as the wingspan of about 10 feet
Mm-hmm.
perched on a rock,
Yeah.
that's a human.
Yeah, and I think
That's damn human.
what you might be referring to is kind of the this is basically the siren of Canosa. This is what you'd assume that people might have seen back then.
Yep.
Like, especially if you're going with this whole bird route, right?
Mm.
This is kind of what you'd expect because, again, these sirens were seen to have had feathers in some cases, especially when
Yes.
they became more human. I mean, more bird-like. And
Mm.
this is a thing that a lot of people used to say were also sirens. Kanabarka on YouTube is saying, "Are you referring to the Haast eagle?" You might want to go and Google that.
I will Google that. Lost eagle.
Yeah. But again, back to the story of like sirens and more of the Eastern context, right? Even in places like Korea apparently, if you look into their records or historical records, there was actually a story of the mayor of the town in Korea who had saved 4 captured mermaids from a fisherman, according to uh, basically his like folklore and history tales from way back when. And this was in the island the island of Donbaek in Busan, where it was another tale of a princess Hwang Ok from Naranda, a mythical undersea kingdom of mermaids. And this was also based on a different tale from India. So about the same thing, but you get what I mean. Everywhere you go, you can kind of have similar stories. The only difference, or well, similarity amongst all the stories, again, which I find very weird, that throughout all the places that you go and hear stories of mermaids and sirens,
Yep.
they all have very similar, um, I guess, bad juju that they bring. Even
Yep.
in the Korean folklore, they also bring impending storms by singing, and they always mess with the people on land as well.
Yes. So not the Haast eagle. Not the Haast eagle. I'm very, very sure it's not the Haast eagle I'm talking about. But on the right track, around a similar size, but apparently there was some sort of albatross or large transatlantic bird that was hovering around the Atlantic that just went extinct pretty recently because of overhunting and also just people being people, and they could catch them and eat them.
Yeah,
So
KK Hing on YouTube actually says, could it be in ancient times that you have one source who ran around the world to spread all these tall tales? Well, I mean, yes, you could think of it that. I don't think it's maybe tall tales, but I I think it could be a mix of the two. Like how when people move from country to country, especially back then with the Silk Road and stuff like that.
yeah,
As you go, you're always going to spread stories about things that you hear and you see, and maybe that could influence people's prescription. I mean, just like where they sit on the whole thing.
I mean, we have to think about it in this way, right? Adeline Way on Facebook made a very good point that she wondered whether sirens and mermaids exist in really ancient times because Homer, the Greek poet, wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. And
Hmm.
if Homer is real, could he be describing extinct species? Homer is a real poet. He is a real person.
Yeah,
We know that for a fact, and that is my theory that during the age of this of Homer, the Greek poet, the sirens were a large species of migratory birds that hung around on rocks and rocky alcoves in the oceans. And when viewed from certain angles, and if you're drunk enough as a sailor, you'd mistake that as a person. And it makes sense that they would have these wonderful singing voices
yeah.
because they're birds. Birds
I,
sing.
I mean, another thing that you can think of. Let's just entertain the idea that mermaids and sirens could have been humanoid, half fish, half human creatures that live in the sea, right?
Mm,
Even if they were a real thing, and if let's say they did get extinct to this point, there would be no way for us to find it. Almost zero chance. Because first of all, if they were to die in the sea, there's very little chance of finding fossil evidence unless years and years later on where maybe a certain area is dried up, then we go and dig. But because the sea is so big and the bodies of water are so deep, it's really hard to find the possibility of that.
okay. But
I mean, I
wouldn't
do
you
have.
find fossils washed up on shore?
You could say that at some point you would, but then again, when things decay in the water, they decay so fast that
No, but
whatever comes
bones
out.
don't readily decay like that.
Oh yeah,
We
for
have
sure.
we have that as evidence. The fact that hey, we get giant squid beaks and megalodon teeth occasionally
Mhm.
still wash up.
Yeah, but maybe mermaids don't have bones. Maybe sirens don't have bones. Maybe they have similar things that sharks have.
Maybe they have
Maybe
cartilage
they.
bones.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe they have cartilage bones. Now, I mean, I want to kind of get through the rest of the lore from the Asian side because I think there's some interesting one. I'm going to end off with actually Southeast Asia. But before I get there, there's also in Japan.
Mm.
Japan is a really interesting one. Japan
Japan
actually
has
has,
many yokai to do with the ocean.
yeah. So this is called the Ningyo. Ningyo is a type of it's kind of a yokai, or it's debatable between the
Oh
two.
yes, yes,
Some people
yes.
say it's a yokai. Some people say it's not a yokai. So depending on what you're actually reading, they could just be separate things. Now
Oh,
the
that's definitely a
difference,
yokai. That's
yeah. So
definitely a yokai.
the difference with especially this fish. Oh wait, well, I'm sorry, my God. This mer folk, this Ningen, or this Ningyo Jesus. right? It's actually just has a head of human
Yep.
and the body is the fish like. So very similar to the previous one we talked about, the I forgot his name already, the Chiyu. It's very similar to that. So the stories behind it were again, it's not necessarily attractive, like especially to the like compatriots, right? But a lot of them describe it as having a human head, a female head specifically, sitting on a body of fish. Which again, you
Okay.
know my stance on that. It's could be koi fish, especially in Japan. But what's very interesting is that specifically with the flesh. Now, the flesh of this mermaid was said to be an elixir to bestow longevity to a lot of the Japanese emperors and people before that. So they will
Oh,
go out of their way to find these or this niños to get him, eat the fish, and then live forever, or at
okay.
least try to live forever.
Huh.
There was even a
Okay.
story of
That's pretty dark.
there
I
was
mean, that
stories
would
of
make
people.
sense.
There was a story of a person who ate it and then he lived for centuries.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Um, you see, in a lot of the ancient tales that
Mhm.
we've reviewed and we've seen and we've talked about and we've discussed, I always get the sinking feeling that these creatures were originally real fish, real creatures, real birds, real lizards, but they're now unfortunately gone. They're extinct now because of myths, legends of immortality. If you eat this fish, or if you were in the age of sail, if you're explorers, you're out there on the ocean for years.
Yeah.
You kind of need food. So you see something that kind of looks like a mermaid, you're not likely to go in the water to try and like make fun times with the mermaid. You're probably going in the water to catch your dinner.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. And especially if you look at the Japanese folklore, I'm going to show you another one. This is not specifically a yokai, but it's
Mm,
another so-called merfolk, right? It's like a
mm.
merman or mermaid, whatever. This is called a, let me get this right. Amabi. I'm probably saying that wrong.
What? What?
A
Amabi?
M A M A B I E. That's literally it.
Ugh.
Amabiko or Amahiko. That's what it is. So when you look at this photo, what do you think? Like, write out in the comment section what you think, because I actually want to say what I think this is, or what people would describe this to be like. So I'm gonna just read you the description, but you guys can go ahead and type it. So this creature is said to have a bird-like mouth, three legs or a tail fin, who allegedly emerges from the sea, prophesizes either abundant harvest or an epidemic, and instructed people to make copies of its likeness to defense against illnesses. So what do you think it is? What does it look like to you?
Looks like a bird to me.
Okay, okay. I'm going to tell you what I think it is. Does this not strike a resemblance to a dolphin?
Eh? Is it a
The
dolphin?
the bird-like beak.
Huh.
Now put yourself in the position of like you were way back when in like early ages. You've never seen a goddamn dolphin in your life. You don't have never seen it, and then you see something like this, lives in the water, and it has a beak-like thing. What do you think? Nowadays, I mean, if I saw this, I'd be like, "Oh shit, they might be talking about a goddamn dolphin."
Yeah.
Now, Orange
I mean
Freak on
that makes sense because even in medieval art, dolphins had scales.
yeah, exactly. Orange Freak on YouTube says it had scales though, but you look at dolphins from a lot of paintings and stuff like that before. Even Moby Dick, for example, like in the stories. Some people thought it was just a giant fish and with scales. So that's where I'm at with this creature because I really think what they may have been seeing is a dolphin.
Huh.
Ooh, Jujubee brings up a good point though. But way back when Japanese were hunting and eating whales, no? Oh, well, they still do actually. I mean, unfortunately, yes,
They still do, and
they
it brings
still
up a
hunt.
good point.
Yeah, they still
The
hunt
fact that
dolphins.
the Japanese people, especially in these islands, did have a tradition of hunting and eating small whales and dolphins
Hmm.
within their waters. So they would know what a dolphin looks like, and the skin of a dolphin and the skin of a whale.
But again, this is where it comes back to the whole thing that you were mentioning before. Maybe previously people were thinking that this creature was a just another mythological thing, but then actually became it's actually just a dolphin, and then now they just hunt the dolphin, or maybe like Orange Freak says, maybe what they actually think gives them the elixir of life is the whale or dolphin meat.
Huh.
Ah, see, it's interesting.
No, I just realized something.
What?
I forgot. Artists in medieval times, and especially ancient Japan, upper class.
So you're saying that they were just really
Never
good?
would have fucking even seen the water or gone in there. Not without
Oh
servants.
yeah, that makes a good point. Yeah, that's true. That is true. They've never gone in the water. That is true. That is true. So you can see this is just another image of that. Like some of the mermaids in Japanese folklore, especially the yokais, the
Hmm.
ninyo, or have had the ability of becoming human and like remove their skin. But again,
Yeah.
through some really weird metamorphosis where they kind of shed their fin-like appendages. Now I want to get to Southeast Asia, especially because I realize
Oh, okay.
we've been going on, and we actually are running out of time a little bit. So this is another one from Japan. This is apparently a body of the Ningyo, especially. So,
Oh,
what do you think?
um, there was a very famous taxidermist that tried in the Americas that went on tour that
Hmm.
tried to recreate uh, legends and myths, mythical creatures in
Yeah,
taxidermy form.
right.
This looks like one of his works.
Yeah, you see, I think there are a lot of like in our research. I actually saw a lot of photos of what you could say is washed up mermen or mermaids or half human, half fish creatures, and unfortunately, all of them kind of fall within the same trap. Now, I don't know if it's because maybe it's really the case that maybe they just look like that, or now that they're what's called taxidermized, that they look the way they do now. But it always looks like they stitched up a goddamn monkey and a fish together.
Hmm.
And in this situation, I mean, this is one that was found in Japan,
Yeah.
but it's still I wouldn't say the body has a very ape-like body, but the head
It
is
looks like a monkey. It looks
the
like a
head
monkey.
is
It
yeah, the head
looks
looks
like
like a
some sort of
monkey's head.
monkey. Um, I have heard of this, and
Hmm.
I believe that back in the I don't know when it was, but very early on, very early on in like the 14th or 15th century, um, it was quite trendy to have really weird shit in your home if you were rich.
Especially, yeah. I mean, it's
Just
like if you look.
really weird shit.
I mean, that's the reason why, like, a lot of people back in the day, like, they go hunting. A lot of these explorers bring back like trophies and tokens of what they saw. So, I mean, shrunken heads, lions, all this kind of stuff, and it kind of just showed that they were well traveled. And it's not so different from today if you think about it. Like,
Yeah.
people bring stuff back from overseas and put them in your house, and people come over like, oh, here I have a shrunken head that I stole from some museum overseas.
Yeah. So like something like this being found in somebody's attic from way back when in Japan doesn't strike me as anything strange, because again, proves you're wealthy, proves you've been
Yeah.
traveling a lot.
So lastly, we get to the Asian. Now we're speaking about monkeys before with that thing. Now I want to tell you a bit about this story because this actually comes from Southeast Asia, specifically in Thailand, right? So in Thailand, I'm gonna try to not butcher the names.
Yep.
Savannah Macha is the daughter of Tungka Kranth, which appears in Thai and other Southeast Asian versions of Ramayana, which is a mermaid.
Mm.
Was a mermaid princess who tried to spoil Hanuman's plans to build a bridge in to Lanka. No idea where that is. I don't think it specifically refers to Sri Lanka, but it's just the capital of a place, right? But she instead falls in love with him. So even in Southeast Asia, you can actually see if you go to Thailand, especially in areas near the water, there are a lot of places where you see this image of this half goddess, god, and fish-like creature.
Yep.
I think even in Indonesia, especially in the Javanese culture, you do have a sea goddess who is the queen of the southern seas that you can actually learn about.
Mm.
It's said to especially inhabit the area of South Java, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, she has a basically a mermaid form as well.
Ah, all right, all right.
Yeah. So that's most of the mythological stuff, but I kind of really want to spend the last few minutes that we have with you guys kind of describing what I really think mermaids are, because I think we alluded to this way before on kind of what the scientific needs that you would need to kind of live in the water. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
even in
And
shallow water.
yeah, I mean, I see a lot of comments also asking about the Malayan. Um, yeah, I would agree with Jujubi, but I believe the Malayan is kind of it's a marketing gimmick. I mean, you're never going to see that kind of thing. But yes, I'll lean lines of it's a gimmick. But back to real mermaids, and let's say sirens, right?
Yep.
For mine, I'm gonna split this up because mermaids and sirens, I have two kind of different
Two really
things.
different things actually in our
Yeah.
research.
I'm actually thinking with sirens, right? I'm thinking of more pinnipeds. Now, pinnipeds, what I'm referring to is stuff like dolphins. I'm sorry, not pinnipeds. Pinnipeds are actually for mermaids. Like dolphins, whales, pilot whales. I feel are more siren-like. And that's only because the key feature that you hear about in sirens is that they all have this song that they sing. Now, if you enter the water with dolphins, whales, anything along those lines, you would notice that they have very unique um, vocalization. Which, if you're on land, you would kind of actually hear that. You would think it sounds very beautiful, and it would be interesting to bring it to words. Now, other animals that you can kind of link it to, you wouldn't really think are fit within the whole siren thing, unless you're talking about birds, which I think Bill can bring you into it.
Yes. Do you want me to bring them into
Oh yeah,
it
you
now?
can talk. Yeah, you can talk about the sirens and birds.
I mean, yes. Okay, I've explained it before. I believe that a large seabird is probably the case of a siren, because it makes sense that a large standing seabird on a rocky outcrop, if you're a sailor, you're looking at it from a distance. You're not gonna get super close to a rocky outcrop because hell, you're a Greek sailor on a freaking trireme or something that's being rowed by like 20 of your like less than savory best mates
Yeah.
and slaves. There you go. Um, and yeah, you're not gonna go anywhere near that outcrop. So what you're seeing is a silhouette of a person, especially when the bird is resting, usually standing. You you can't make out a face in the heat of the Mediterranean, in the heat or just the just the fatigue of just being out in the ocean for a long time. You imagine a face.
Mhm.
You put in dots and curves where there shouldn't be, that wasn't, and yeah, you get a siren. And it
Yeah,
also explains why sirens have such beautiful voices because it's bird calls. Many birds use use calls.
yeah. So, I mean, again, let us know in the comments if you think it's more dolphin-like or more bird-like, because I think that's kind of where we split. Like, I don't think, okay, when it comes to dolphins and sirens especially, I don't think that they can live on land, but because of the sounds that they make and where they kind of are seen, especially like in Cove area and stuff like that, those are areas where dolphins are very, known to stay around. But
Hmm.
moving away from sirens, right? When it comes to mermaids, it's actually a very different set of animals that we think it might be. I actually think there are four possibilities. Well, three possibilities of what I think a mermaid is. It could be a dugong slash manatee. It
Okay,
could be a sea lion,
okay,
or it could be seals.
all right.
So there's three of those. What do you think?
I think in a very similar case to the monk seal, if you don't know what that is an extinct member of the seal family that
Hmm.
was quite large, almost human
Hmm.
sized, or if not larger. Whoops. And that was hunted to extinction because people decided that it was pretty tasty and ate it, and they were very easy to catch. So I truly hate to say this, but I think that mermaids used to be a marine mammal, a seal of some sort, maybe even a walrus, like a type of walrus that had either markings or I don't know, just so happened to have a very similar um, basic facial structure to like a human,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
and it was probably one of its main defining features because that's pretty rare in the animal kingdom.
yeah.
Not many non-simian primates have that as facial structure, and it just so happened that that marine mammal was quite friendly and quite amicable to people,
Hmm.
just like uh, just like um, just like seals. All seals are very curious. They don't run away from people. They swim towards you and kind of want to play and see what's going on. That's why they're so easy to catch. That's why
Hmm.
you get the term seal clubbing because the seals would literally come up to you. You just take a sack and you put them in the sack and you club them
And you bonk them on the head.
and you bonk them in the head and you got food. You
Yeah, I
do that a
mean,
couple dozen times and you get food for a month.
yeah, I really think, with especially with mermaids and like going towards more of the seal and sea lion stuff. If you go and look and just Google an image of a, let's say, a monk seal, right? If you didn't know any better, you would assume, okay, minus the long hair, you would assume that that
So
thing
that's the
actually
thing,
looks
right? That's
pretty
the thing,
human.
right? It is not infeasible that a seal could have almost like a mane-like structure
Yeah, I agree.
because seals inherently have quite thick fur coats.
Hmm.
It's just that it is wet most of the time, and there isn't like one area which does have like a mane. For whatever
Yeah,
reason, they could have been a seal species which did have something like a
like a
mating,
lion's mane,
like a lion's
or
mane
yeah,
that it used as a sign of display, just like walruses and the tusks.
yeah.
Stranger things have happened in nature.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with something that Ivan Gold said on Facebook, that there's a lot of things we don't know about the sea. We've only explored, like, I believe it's what, not even 40% of the entire sea. Could it be a possibility that it's a thing that's still around, or maybe if you're tying back to the episode before, maybe there's a civilization like Atlantis where all these mermaids live. It's just I think it's rather unlikely that we have this sort of creature, especially since we haven't heard about mermaids for the longest times and sightings of mermaids for the
Yeah.
longest times. Like this one that I found that I showed you guys about TikTok, that is like one out of I don't know how many years previously that we haven't seen one. So it's very uncommon nowadays if you think about that. And
Yep.
if they were a real thing before, I think like many other creatures and beings and maybe stuff that we discuss, we won't really see anymore because they're probably just gone.
Again, if there was an ancient civilization living underwater, I think by now either they're all dead or they must be living in such squalor. To be fair, we have done so much damage to the ocean. We've thrown so much just crap in the ocean that I don't know. If there was a human civilization living down there in the water, their their babies
They're
must be
way
so
gone,
deformed.
and they're
They're
way
they're
gone now.
they're way gone.
Yeah,
It is so bad right now, and yeah, that's the unfortunate thing about cryptozoology. The more you look at ancient kind of legends and cryptids and stuff like that, the more you kind of get a bit angry about the state of the environment and how we're treating it, because these these could have been discoveries. These could have been real animals, but we'll never know anymore. And
yeah.
I think good it's a very good thing that we're talking about it, especially in the context of cryptozoology, that there is a movement within cryptozoology to be more environmentally conscious,
Mhm.
to be in fact in many cases to be extremely environmentally conscious, because to be a cryptozoologist is the acceptance that we still have so much to discover and learn, and if people keep seeing these things, then there must be some relevance to it. And if we just keep destroying the environment, at some point people are going to stop seeing them, and then we'll know they're all dead and it's too late.
I like how I think with on the fringe, I think that's where Bill and I, we kind of got along because as much as I think our backgrounds is pretty different in terms of how we see we like our education, for example.
Hmm.
But we're both on the side of that. There could be a lot of things out there, and I don't think we ever wanted this show to be a very focused on zoology and conservation. But I've noticed that throughout the episodes, we've always brought it as a very key point of everything that we talk about. And we don't want to be like the ultra tree huggers. But I think, again, like what Bill was saying, conservation is very important. And I think whatever I do, I will always try to spread the word for that. So, for those that are watching, if you want to go and find out more about conservation and the efforts, go do research in your local communities because there's definitely something going on.
Yep.
But that was a bit of a tangent. But yeah,
Yes.
I think there's something else I want to address because I feel like there was a lot of people talking on Facebook about it, about half human, half birds. If you do want to have an episode on harpies, which I do think is a very interesting one, especially one we had today, mermaids and sirens.
Yep.
Harpies are also something really interesting. Rather, what's the word? Rather unspoken of. Also, probably a case of misidentification, but it could be something we talk about on too. So again, if you have something that you want to hear about, you want to give us a topic, also have a look at that on the poll because
Yep.
we always
Absolutely.
have, yeah, give us something that you want to hear about. We'll always bring it to you.
Yep.
So unfortunately, we don't really have time for an AMA this week. We'll give you one next week if you guys want. Let us know then. So we will put out the topics on the poll probably on Friday.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And Bill, you can lead us out.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. Sorry again, we've been kind of getting into the whole ecology and protecting the environment thing, but when you're talking about cryptozoology, when you're talking about nature, it always crops up. It just rears its ugly head out all the time, and it it makes you just emotional, a little bit emotional about the way things are going. And yeah, so if you want us to talk about other things that I don't know might trigger me or might rile up Mr. Matt,
Oh, dude,
let
also
us
about
know in the
yeah.
poll, and we'll be sure to prepare something wonderful for you all. So thank you very much, and the truth is always out there. Matt,
Yeah. I wanted to jump in there. Guys, there's also other things that we do want to explore, such as conspiracy theories, the Illuminati, Bilderbergs, all sort of stuff. We can talk about 9/11. That's a bit sensitive. But since it's
no,
not
it's not. It's
September
been a
anymore,
while, dude.
I mean, we can get there. If that's something you want to hear about and you want to hear about more conspiracies, just click on the conspiracy tab and we'll give you something like definitely interesting to tune into next week. But thank you again for watching us. Thanks for your continuous support. We don't have much long, but don't forget we have the meetup on the 21st of October.
Yep,
And also for
21st of
those who are
October.
watching from Sarawak, we will be there to meet you guys there, and also look onto the was it SC private chat, SC private chat room. Look out for the video, fill up those things, and we'll see you there. But until next time, that was really long and a lot of promos to do. Until next time, stay on the fringes, guys.
Yes.
Bye.
What did you find?
You are listening to Supernatural Confessions.